So right now, do you need better friends? Just as I said, you might be thinking to yourself, well, there's a couple things wrong with that. There's a couple things wrong with getting these toxic people out of my life, the negative people, the doubters, and all these people around me that I feel that are my friends and family. But in this video, I'm going to talk about why you need to remove these negative friends. And not only that, I'm going to talk about a better way to think about it so you don't feel guilty. Because I know you may be feeling that, what, you're being fake, you don't want to stay the same, and people saying, bro, for real, you didn't change, bro. You didn't change for real. You ain't the same person no more. You ain't hanging with us like you used to, bro. I'm going to show you how to think about this in a better way. Get better friends in your life so your life can keep going up and up and up. So let's talk about it. So I'm going to go a bit deeper than most people go on this topic. I've seen this all over the internet, and people kind of talk about, you just need to leave your friends behind. You need to burn the boats. You need to get out there and you need to take action. But I'm going to talk, it's not that easy. I want to go a little bit deeper on this topic than most people probably have went with you on this topic. And firstly, I want to go to the idea of why does this toxic mindset even exist in the first place? So the first topic I want to talk about, or the first concept, is subjective reality versus objective reality. Now, what is this? When I talk about subjective experience, I want you to think about it like this. Right now, there's a building behind me, or there's grass over here. And if we both looked at the grass, we might agree, oh, there's grass right there. There's not anything subjective about that. That's objectively grass there. We can sit there. So objective is the way the world actually is. Not the way we put our bias and perceive it to be, but the way it actually exists. Now, if I said, oh, I like grass, or I dislike grass, or I hate grass, well, that would be me putting my own bias on the grass, but it still wouldn't change the fact that the grass exists. That's the subjective experience. When you put your emotional biases and your own thoughts onto something, that is your subjective experience. Now, I know that's a lot to explain, but it's going to make sense later on when I get to my point about how we see reality different and why one person's reality could be affecting your reality and how you have to use your own subjective experience in order to be successful. So the first thing I want you to realize about every behavior, that it has a positive intention. So you may think that your friends are being assholes, but really everything that they're doing, it has a purpose to it. I remember my mother was telling me this story. My mother is terrified of snakes. In fact, I know this might have been a little bit messed up to do, but when we were young, I got a rubber snake, and when she was coming in the house, I came in and ran in there. She ran. She's like, get it away from me. She was going crazy. My grandmother looked at me and said, why the hell would you do that? I was just a kid. I was like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but she was terrified of snakes. But she told me a story, a behavior that she developed that carried on all the way until she was an adult that she got when she was a child. When she was walking along a path, she was walking and she saw a coppermouth snake. She saw it on the ground and she nearly stepped on it. She was terrified of snakes, so she ran away. She said, till this day, she still looks down when she walks because in her subconscious, she believes that she might see a snake. Now, this is a behavior that she got when she was 6, and it's like 30, 40 plus years later that she still has that behavior. Now, if you study anything like body language or you study business, they always tell you, you have to have a posture. You have to stand up right. You have to look forward, look in front of you. That projects confidence. So if you take that same behavior into, say, a boardroom or something, people are going to interpret it as, oh, you're not confident, that you're not sure of yourself. But that behavior, it's not a bad thing. Her looking down is not a bad thing. At the time when she was young, her looking down would have stopped her from getting bit by a poisonous snake. But now, as she's got older, it has no purpose. Well, maybe it still has a purpose of not getting bit by snakes. But the point is, every behavior that somebody does, everything that somebody does, there's a reason for it. There's a reason. It's done to protect you, maybe to protect your ego. People have success barriers. For example, maybe you don't want to go too high because you know mentally you cannot handle it. You can't deal with the pressure, so you sabotage yourself. And this negative self-talk, this reality is why so many people adopt these behaviors and keep these behaviors later on in life. The next thing I want to talk about is it's real to me. You ever got around these people that are very negative and you try to tell them, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. And even if it's something that's crazy or it's off the wall, maybe a conspiracy, maybe something that they believe that is stopping them, it's not really stopping, you just can't get them to see that it's not real. My nephew spent the night at my grandmother's house, and he said he was having nightmares, having real bad nightmares. He was seeing monsters in his dreams. And my grandmother woke him up, and his grandmother woke him up and said, baby, you gotta understand, the monsters, they're not real. They're not real. And he looked at it and he said, they're real to me. Now, once again, going back to that subjective experience, when somebody is in a victim mindset, when they're in a low state of consciousness, when they're in that reality, it is that real to them. You could not convince them otherwise that it is not real. And this goes down to the final part of where this negative mindset comes from, or this toxic mindset comes from. the idea of the map is not the territory. This is something that comes from neuro-linguistic programming. If you studied that, this is a big thing where they say about how we view the world. Now remember I was talking about objective reality. So objectively, you look at the world and that's the way it is. But none of us ever see the world completely objective. We all have a subjective experience. I have certain biases, you have certain biases, we all have certain biases. There's nothing wrong with that. But just like by my house, there's some construction. So I got on Google Maps and there's construction by my house. And the exit to get on the construction or to get on the freeway has changed. But Google still thinks the exit is right there. So it always tells me get on there, but I can't get on there. So Google has a map. It's a map of the area. But the actual territory is different from the map. And that's how you have to look at your ideas or your subjective experience of reality. It's just a map. It's not the territory. It's not the actual territory. And once we understand that, we can start selecting better maps in order to be successful. But this also explains why different realities can coexist amongst each other, and we can all see the world in a different way, even though we're all experiencing the same events. So now that we understand where this toxic mindset comes from, I want to talk about your own personality and people saying that you've changed or you're getting this feeling that you're being fake when you start coming up. So the next thing we need to talk about is your personality. Now, a lot of people, when you start trying to come up, the first thing they're going to say is you're fake. And now I know, like, I was telling my mother the other day, you know, when you start off in self-development, they start talking about these things like affirmations. You know, you're the best. Just tell yourself every morning that you can do it, that you're a winner, that you're a champion. And when you first start doing shit like that, you're like, oh my God, it's corny. I always tell people, I was so self-conscious about doing this that I used to be in my room trying to keep not hear people walk by, so I didn't want to hear them say, you're the best, you're the best. And people bust in and be like, what the hell you in here? You ain't the best. What the hell you talking about? I used to do this because I was so self-conscious about making that change. And when you start making that change, people start saying that you're fake. You're being something you're not, bro. That's not the real you. Why can't you just stay the same like us? But I want to talk about firstly why staying the same is a myth. There's this big myth going around that just because you start trying to step up or you start changing, that somehow you're being fake or not being real. But let me ask you something. Even if you go to a regular corporate job, did you start off knowing anything about that job? Didn't you have to train? Didn't you have to learn? Didn't you have to adapt to maybe being a kid who was playing video games, maybe being somebody who was going out all the time, to actually learning how to get up, go to work, build habits that made you successful? Would the person say that that is not your real personality? And it's the same thing when you're trying to be successful. There's a set of mindsets and beliefs that you have to be successful. It's just one of the things. I think people think that somehow being successful is tied to, oh, you know what? As long as I have enough knowledge, I'm gonna be successful. No, the people you are around, the mindset you entertain, the things that you put into your mind, all these things affect your success. And when you see people being successful, you won't see them just, oh yeah, I just woke up randomly one day and shit, I just became successful. You'll see them reading books. You'll see them getting around good mentors. You see them building their mental state up. But when people see this, because they're not used to that change, they have the tendency to say what? You're being fake. You're being something you're not. Remember in the first part when I was talking about maps of reality. Understanding that the map is not the territory allows us to do one powerful thing. And what is that? It allows us to pick beliefs and mindsets that help us get to where we want to go. I want you to clearly understand that me, myself, I have biases. Strong biases to entrepreneurship. That doesn't mean it's the perfect way to live, the right way to live, or anything like that. But I know that it gets me to where I want to go in life. This is not about selecting a map for somebody else. This is about selecting a map to get to where you want to go. So let's think about it like this. If a person is going to corporate America and they just want to work a job or something like that, the map that I have of reality may not be what they want. But if a person wants to be an entrepreneur, and that's what we're talking about here, massive action, being a massive action entrepreneur, then you're going to have to adopt beliefs and mindsets that are similar to those people who achieve that level of success. In essence, you're gonna have to adopt a different map. Similar to that map when I was talking about getting on the freeway. If I use the same map, I'm gonna crash into the wall because there is no more entrance there. But if I use a map that's going in the direction that I wanna go, that is clearly mapped out to get to where I wanna be, then it's gonna get me where I wanna be. I ask people this all the time. What type of person would you like to be? I'm not talking about goals, I'm not talking about anything. Like, what type of person would you like to be? Would you like to be the negative person? Would you like to be the inspiring leader that people look to, that people want advice from, that people want to be around? Or do you want to be the negative person who sits and complains all day? Which one do you really want to be? And ask yourself, are the beliefs and mindsets that you carry right now the ones that a person like that would carry? That's why you have to model successful people. You have to understand that you're not being fake by changing your personality. The core values, I still love my family. I still love the things around me. But to be an entrepreneur, I had to build better habits. I had to build a better map. So the second thing you have to understand is that when your map starts to change, when you start to change your reality, people will think it's fake, but you're not being fake. You're only moving to be the person that you want to be. Now that we understand where this toxic mindset comes from, and we understand when your personal change starts to happen, why people start acting like that, I want to delve a little bit deeper. Why do your friends and family do this? Well, the first thing is that, remember I told you that every behavior, it has some type of positive intention behind it. So they're not doing this just to be somebody who's an asshole. They're not doing this just to mess you over. They're doing this because they believe that what you're doing is something that may not help you. I want you to think about it like this. This girl, I was talking to her on the phone. She was talking about her mother. Now, she doesn't believe in, say, organized religions. And I'm not trying to make any statements about religion or anything like that, but she asked me, she said, you know, my mother, she's telling me that I need to be doing this. She's trying to control me. She's trying to mess over me. She was saying all this shit about how her mother was trying to control me. But then I asked her a simple question. I said, well, let me ask you something. If you had a child and you believed that they were making the biggest mistake in their life, something that could harm them, something that could lead them to eternal damnation, like I said, whether you believe it or not, would you allow your child to make that decision? She said, no, I would tell them everything. I said, because why? You believe it's in their best intentions. A lot of times when you're doing stuff and you're trying to be successful, people are not trying to stop you because they think, oh, well, shit, that I don't want them to be successful. Now, there are those who do that, and I'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of times the friends are because they just don't want to see you fail. They don't want to see you hurt yourself. Remember, everybody's map of reality is different. So from her reality, it seemed that she was trying to be controlled. But from her mother's reality, she wasn't trying to control them. She was simply trying to make sure that her child doesn't make a bad decision. I tell people all the time, I was telling my mother about when I was growing up, how the difference between me and my brother. My brother, when he got bad grades, they never really said anything about it. But if I got just a B, they would go crazy. They would be like, why you got a B? You don't know how to sit in class and listen. It would be crazy. But it formed a part of my reality that carried on till I was till I was older. Now, as a child, my map of the world was like, well, if I don't perform, I don't do well, they don't love me. That was my map of the world. Doesn't make it true. Once again, it's not the objective reality. They thought they were doing it to help me. But to me, it was somebody trying to mess me over. It was, oh, I don't get affection unless I get validated by performing. And that carried on way until I was older. It took me years. Only till recently was I able to really break that type of mentality. And I still struggle with it from time to time. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is people not wanting you to succeed when you're not with them. Now, I admit to even having this feeling before. You know, you have friends, they go off and they do their own thing. You're like, oh shit, they're doing well. And part of you, that little side of you says, you maybe not want to, you don't want to see them do well because, you know, you don't want people to succeed without you. And I felt that before. And I don't have any insecurities about saying that, right? I felt that before. But here's the thing. When people see you being successful, when people see you leaving without them, it's almost like a train is leaving the station. They're like, you know what, I don't want to get left behind. I want to get on board right now while things are going good. But when things start going good, maybe they didn't believe in you, or maybe they were hating on you, but really what it was is they just don't want to see you succeed because they don't believe they can succeed themselves. It's so easy for us to take our own reality and believe that people are hating on us because of something we're doing to them, something that we're acting upon them that's making them act like that. But in reality, like I told you before, it's just their subjective, their map of reality. That map they have of reality makes them see what you're doing as maybe something directly to them. You ever had people, they be like, yeah, you walk in, they like, look at him, he trying to stun. He trying to stun on me. That person probably doesn't give a fuck or even know who you are. But you feel like they're trying to stun on you. Somebody could drive through a neighborhood and they could drive through a neighborhood in a nice car and they be like, look, he's trying to stun on me. Doesn't even know who you are. But your subjective view of reality makes you think that that person is trying to directly do something to you. This is because people do not want to see you succeed if it's not with them. Now, take that same person. My brother always says this, only the losers are complaining. You take that same person, you drive up on him and say, hey, let me give you a car. They'd be like, man, I like that dude. I like him. He's the real deal. Like, because they're a part of it, then they wouldn't have a problem with it. And that's one of the things you have to understand with people hating. And the final thing I want to talk about is fear of losing you. So many people, when you start coming up, it may be your mother, it may be your brother, maybe your sister, maybe your friends, they believe that when you come up that they're not going to be around you anymore. Because when you start coming up, when you start being successful, it demands a lot more of your time. And you being able to hang around, play Madden 2K, watch Netflix all day, maybe you can't do it anyway. If you got a girlfriend, you got a boyfriend or something like that, you can't hang with them the same way you used to hang with them. So they may feel like, well, I'm losing what we had. I'm losing that relationship that we had. But what they don't understand is that that growth is what you need. It's not that you're going to lose, they're going to lose you. It's that you're growing into the person that you need to be in order to be happy. And if they truly care, they would be able to deal with that change. So now that we understand why friends and family members do this, your personality, and where this comes from, I want to talk about why you absolutely must let go of these toxic friends and relationships in order to be successful. So the next thing I need to talk about is why you absolutely must let friends go in order to be successful. So the first thing in the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, they talk about 3 states of relationships. So the 3 states you have is codependence, independence, and interdependence. So in a codependent relationship, both of you are really needy. You're actually toxic to each other. You're feeding off each other. So you may have insecurities and self-doubts, and your partner doesn't, or the person you're with, or the business partner, or whatever it is, doesn't actually try to make you better. They just feed into your codependency, your neediness. So how would that manifest in business? Maybe you have self-confidence issues. Maybe you have problems doing processes and systems, working with teams. Maybe you have a victim mindset. And the person you're working with, they don't even call you out on it. They just kind of let you be that person because they need that person, because they can feel like maybe they're superior to you because they're doing better than you. This codependency can cause relationships to be toxic. I was actually in a codependent relationship when I was in college, and it really stopped me from doing well in school because I just was so caught up and needy in that relationship. But after that, you move to what they call independence, and this is where a lot of people will start kind of falling off in your life. Where you don't feel like you really need anybody. You don't need anybody to help you. You're just a strong structure by yourself. When you get around other people, you're not really, oh, well, you know, I need you to validate me. I need you to think or believe in what I'm doing. I don't need any of that from you. All I need is for me to follow my own path, my own values, my own map that I've set for myself. And the final stage is interdependence. And this is the most powerful way that you can be, or powerful paradigm that you can be in, because what this basically says is that 2 independent parties come together to build something greater than they could have built apart. This is the ideal state of friendships, that when 2 people come together, they build something greater than they do apart. I want you to think about it like this. It doesn't even matter if it's something maybe social. Maybe when you and your friends get together, y'all have the most fun that any friends ever had in the history of having fun. Maybe when y'all come together on business, y'all build businesses that are bigger than people have ever built businesses. But whatever it is, you should come together with that person in a interdependent way and not a codependent way. Not that you're feeding off them and leeching off them, and not you're leeching off and they're leeching off you, or vice versa. Now, this leads to the next point I want to talk about, and that sometimes friends need to be let go in order to grow. I want to talk about a good friend of mine. Now, I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to talk about who it is, but a good friend of mine. I worked with them for over 2 years trying to help them build their business. I did it for absolutely free. No cost or anything like that. And I wouldn't trade any of it because I learned so many lessons from actually teaching or actually being a part of that. But what I realized as time progressed, that the progress really wasn't getting made. And why was that? Because the codependency had formed where I was depending on that feeling of validation that somebody was like, man, the stuff you're saying is good. The shit you're saying is real. The shit you're saying is helpful. But it wasn't really helping that person's life. And on vice versa, where did it come? It come dependent on me to help whenever things got bad, whenever things went wrong. They were dependent on me to step in. But what I realized was that I was becoming the crutch. I was the person not allowing them to grow. Even though I'd been given all this great knowledge, all this great information, I had to realize that sometimes that you may think being toxic means that you're the bad guy, when really it means that sometimes people have to learn their own lessons in order to grow. I know all the time we sit back and we say, you know, what about, I want to help this person, I want to help this friend, I want to help this person who's down. But a lot of times when you step in to help them, they never really learn the lessons they need to be self-reliant, self-sufficient, and they depend on you, and they form this codependency where you're both leeching off each other. I realized that I had to let that go in order for that person to grow, in order for myself to grow, and in order for us to build a stronger tie that could maybe build something greater in the future. Which leads me to my next point. Sometimes friends don't leave permanently. When you move up, when you change your map, when you change your subjective reality, when you start becoming a better person, the best version of yourself, whatever you want to call it, what then begins to happen is some friends, they won't go with it. They won't be willing to change. But you'll have those few friends who sometimes they'll go, you know, I'm not with it. But later on in life, they'll say, you know, at the time, I was just being an asshole. I didn't know why I was thinking like that, but now I understand what you were talking about. And sometimes those friendships come back and they're better than ever. Same thing with relationships. You could break up with somebody and get back with them later when the mindset is different and y'all build something greater together. Because y'all both learned to be independent, and now y'all can build something greater together with interdependence. This is one of the key things you have to understand. And the last thing I want to talk about is that friends who are truly your friends will understand the journey and the shift that you're making. I won't lie and say that a lot of friends when I first started being an entrepreneur didn't fall off. I mean, a lot of them. I lost a lot of friends who just really didn't understand what was going on or what I was doing. But there was the small minority of friends who sat there and said, you know, I see what you're doing, I see what you're trying to accomplish, and I support you 100%. At no point did they fall off. At no point did they, whether they believed it or not, did they say, you know what, I'm not gonna deal with you, I'm not gonna be around you, I'm not gonna be a part of what you're doing. These friends understood the journey. And a true friend, any true friend, as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, they will understand the journey and they will be willing to follow you and they'll be willing to be a part of your continued growth. But in order to get to that point, you have to be willing to remove the toxic relationships and the people who are holding you back, because that's the only way you're ever going to be able to succeed. So I want to wrap this up by understanding that, you know, your friends and family, they're not doing this to try to hurt you. They're not doing this because they believe that they really want to hold you back. It's just them, their own subjective view of reality. They believe that they're doing what's best for you, or they believe that you're going to leave them behind and they're going to lose them. A lot of times it's not them just being toxic. But sometimes you do have to let negative friends go. Sometimes you do have to say, you know what, fuck it, you're not my friend anymore. I'm going in a different direction. And sometimes that's just as clear as you can make it. But what I want you to take from this video is understanding that everybody is really trying to do the best they can, whether it's friends, whether it's family, anybody. They're not trying to hurt you. And understand also that when you start to change, when you start to become a different person, people are not going to accept that change. Just because you said, oh, today I'm going to become a successful person, that doesn't mean tomorrow that everybody's going to automatically believe you. It takes time. One of the best things I ever heard was from one of my favorite books, The 8 Pillars of Prosperity. They was talking about self-reliance. They said, the self-reliant person, sooner or later, the world has to deal with them on their own terms. And that's really all you're doing, is waiting for the world to deal with you on your own terms. That's what changing your personality or your map of the world is really about. And then next, I want you to understand the real reason is that they fear losing you. They fear that you're going to go off. They fear that you're not going to be there anymore. And finally, you have to let them go, because those toxic relationships, those codependent relationships, they're not where growth comes from. They're not where success comes from. That's not where big success, big businesses, or great achievement comes from. It comes from those interdependent structures that build together and make something great. So I want to challenge you in this video to look at your own self, to look at yourself and say, what person do I really want to be? What type of energy do I want to give to the world? And how can I build that person up? How can I change my map of the world in order to start becoming that person? It starts with you just saying, this is where I want to be, and this is the map of reality I choose to go towards, and adopting the beliefs and the mindsets that will help you get there. Remember, the only way to truly be successful is to get around better influences and be the gardener of your own mentality. When you sow bad seeds, bad things happen. But when you sow better thoughts and better seeds, you garden better things. You bear fruit. Remember that. As usual, go sign up, join the Massive Action Movement. We're about to go out here, we're about to take some more action. Appreciate you for watching. Really enjoyed doing this video, and I'll see you next time.